Hi guys! So this is a video I've been very excited to make. As you have seen in my previous video, I did a little cheeky wheel of TBR thing and it picked Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. And I was really excited when that happened. I'm not as excited anymore after I've read it, but I'm really excited for this little wheel of TBR thing, and I'll be doing it at the end of the video as well, so you guys can know what I'll be reading next. But let's get into the review because I have thoughts about this book. A lot of thoughts. So if you guys have watched my last video, you would have seen me be excited about the book. As I previously said, I'm really in the mood for this subgenre that has been going around for a bunch of years, and that is dark academia. I forgot a word before I said it because it's me. But I really fell in love with the dark academia genre after I've read Secret History by Donna Tartt and If We Were Villains by Emil Rio. I'm mentioning them always in my videos as of late, but I really love those books, and I'm still trying to find other books in the genre that I like, and I thought Ninth House will be it, but it's not. So if you guys haven't read the book, the synopsis is we follow our main protagonist, which is Alex Stern, Alex Stern, and she has a rough background. She hasn't had the easiest life, like not at all. And the special thing about her is that she can see ghosts. And after a huge accident that basically shook her world, Yale University contacts her and asks her to be a part of the Houses of the Veil because she can see ghosts. And these houses are a secret society that deal with magic. And Alex will be one of the ninth house, which is the House of Lethe, that basically makes sure that the other 8 houses don't take advantage of their magic. And it's such an interesting idea because you have this incredibly detailed campus and you have this sprinkle of fantasy, horror fantasy even, and it just grips you and you want to know more. And after you find out more, you realize you would have preferred not to find out more, but yeah. I want to start the video on a positive note, and the thing that I really loved about this book is the atmosphere. The author, Leigh Bardugo, goes into incredible detail when creating this campus. It feels very immersive. It is very immersive, and you feel as if you're walking with Alex. You understand the building's positions and how everything feels and the way the students behave and everything. And most people, I think, really enjoy this idea of a fantasy campus setting and also mingled in with the dark academia and the horror elements that Ninth House has. It seems like the perfect book, especially for me. It seemed like the perfect book, but it fell short. Like, it fell incredibly short. You have on one side this incredible world building that is immersive and with ghosts that are really creepy. Like, if you look at ghosts, they'll get attached to you. And on the other hand, you have these characters that are so bland and so like cardboardish. My first thing that I didn't enjoy in the book is that I really don't care about the characters. I know it sounds harsh. I shouldn't make it sound so harsh, but I truly didn't. Like, this is my honest opinion. The main character, I really didn't care for her. She felt incredibly lacking of any personality. It felt like her only personality was that she was different from other girls. She had incredibly cringy lines. She had that trope of being misunderstood and having the most traumatic, over-the-top background. And I get it. It happens and it's incredibly sad. It's incredibly traumatic, but I really don't like how it's a motif that keeps appearing in like thriller or murder mysteries or now in fantasy, where you have your main character be a girl and she is just the most bombarded by the worst things that can happen in the world, but she doesn't seem to deal with them. And this is what I really didn't like about our main character, Alex. It felt like her trauma came back up only when it was important for the plot. That's the worst thing about this book. She had this incredibly bleak backstory, a lot of trauma and abuse and everything you can think of, literally everything you can think of. And it felt like it was there only when the plot needed it. And just because you give us this character that has gone through it doesn't mean that you're done with the character. Like, it feels like that cheap trick of killing the pet of the family so you can feel something. It feels just the same because you have this character that can have so much to them, even though it has kind of become a cliche character because you see it so much, especially with female lead characters in books, but it still feels like it wasn't dealt with. So other than Alex, we actually do have a character that I really cared about, and that is Daniel Arlington, also called Darlington. He basically is Alex's mentor throughout her journey in Yale, and he teaches her how to protect the rituals that the other houses are doing and how to make sure that they don't abuse their power. And he is such a goofball, and not goofball, but he's so lovable. Darlington feels way more realistic than Alex does because he has a personality. You actually see him constantly deal with his trauma from his childhood when he was abandoned by his parents and he had to be raised by his very rich grandpa. I know it doesn't necessarily seem as a very bad background, but it is. And the more you find out, the more you empathize with him and you get to understand why he is being so condescending at times and why he is so snarky at times. But he is really a great character. I actually liked him, but the bad part about this book is that the whole mystery of the book is that he disappears during one of the many rituals that they partake in, and you don't get him. Like, you get him in flashbacks, you get him from Alex's perspective of what happened, but you don't actually get to see him and see her now in the present interact with him, and that's a bummer. I hope in the next book maybe he will be more present, but from what I get at the end of the book, from what I understood, he is a demon now. So I don't know if he'll be the way that he was in the first book because he's now apparently a demon. Strange. But yeah, now moving on from the characters, which lukewarm. At the end of the day, it's a lukewarm situation. I like some of them. I really don't like most of them. I want to talk about the way the book is structured. So you have chapters that I called winter, which are in the present time, and then you have chapters that are called last fall, which are the flashback and the moment where Darlington disappeared. I really thought that through last fall you will get the result and resolution of what happened to Darlington, and that will be the big reveal because it's leading up to that event in the last fall. And then winter is leading up to the event of them trying to make a ritual on a full moon to bring him back. So it's very intriguing. You feel as if something is going to happen, and from the get-go you have this sense of suspense that next chapter something will happen, the next chapter something will be revealed, but it never is, like, at all. And I really don't get why it was told that way, because last fall doesn't illuminate you with any new information. I mean, something does happen, but it's so small that I don't understand why there were so many timelines, because after that timeline you also have flashbacks, which are very here and there. You have flashbacks from when he was really little and flashback of Alex's life. So it's an incredibly weird situation with time placement and everything. You feel like you've entered the multiverse and you don't know where to go, what to do. So at the end of the day, it didn't really help build up any climax for the reader or deliver a great twist. It didn't help us figure out what happened in the past and give us a twist there that would go through in the future now that there's this new ritual to bring Darlington back. So I feel as if it was very redundant. It was there, it happened. At least we have more scenes with Darlington because there was so much time we spent in the past, and that's what I'm grateful for. But other than that, I don't know what was the purpose of it. So because this is a fantasy book, I have to talk about the fantasy elements and the magic system, if there is one there. This is the part that I'm most saddened about because it fell short. So you have these 8 houses of the Vale, and every single house does something. Some do like smoke and mirror type of magic. Some try to bring back people from the dead. Some like predict the future, and they're not well explained. You get to understand like 3 to 4 of them, and they have these very weird names that should resonate to what they do, magically what they do. For me, it didn't connect at times. especially in my brain, like I couldn't pick like bones and skulls. I was like, okay, what do they do? Because it sounds like snakes and flowers or whatever they were called. And because of that, you don't really have a mental image of every single one of them, and you cannot understand what they do. They're constantly brought up in conversation. They're seemingly important to the plot, but still you have no clue as to what they do. I would have liked at the end of the day, when I finished reading the book, to really understand what every single house did, but I don't. I know like 3 of them that were more prioritized in a sense, but it did feel like every single one was mentioned and every single one seemed important to the plot, but it didn't at the end of the day. And it all just made it so convoluted. You don't really get to feel anything for them. You're not like scared, because you should be scared of them because they have this incredible magical power, and they're like teenagers or young adults that have access to that power, and they can like change world events. So it's not just Yale based, but at the end of the day, you don't really get to understand most of them. And I feel like this is a pity. Maybe in the next books they'll be more explained, but they could have just done like 3 to 4 of them, made them their main priority, and just mentioned in passing the rest of the 8 houses of the Veil. And this deals with the magic system as well. It's very, very soft. So you know what Alex can do, that she can see ghosts, which is very bizarre because other people have to take a substance to see them. And it's really cool. It's really intriguing. I liked the ghost part of the story, but you have some limitations that by the end of the book, they seem not to be as a limitation as you would have thought. Things aren't well explained in the book. It feels like the magic system is there to move forward the plot rather than build a plot around it in a sense, and have these very interesting moments where the character actually figures out something to do, and you're like, wow, you're so smart because you came up with the idea and the magic system and you found a loophole. But it feels like the magic system can bend with the plot when it's needed, and I don't really like that. I get it, it happens with soft magic systems quite a lot. And talking about the plot, how it was helped and moved forward by the magic system. So the main plot was the disappearance of Darlington. At some point in the book, you actually suspect that Alex did it, like she killed him, or she like sent him in a multiverse and he's gone forever because of her, and you don't really trust her by the end of the book. And the end of the book feels incredibly unsuspenseful. So this book feels as if you're constantly on edge. Something will happen the next page, the suspense, the climax, a twist, something, but it never happens. Like you finish the book and you're like, oh, so I read 400 pages of basically nothing. So I've seen people that really appreciate the ending, but for me, it wasn't satisfying to read, and it felt very randomly put together. There's a big mystery of a murder that took place in Yale, and there's also this ghost that decides to help Alex solve the murder if she helps him figure out who killed his wife like 200 years prior, and because he's a very old ghost. And the end of the book is that the teacher, the only teacher that took a liking to Alex and was very kind to her, took her on a summer job, was actually inhabited by that 200-year-old dead wife, because she has been eating spirits of women ever since. And that was the twist to the story, and it came out of nowhere. It came absolutely out of the blue. It wasn't satisfying. It felt like it didn't respect any of the magic system rules that were put in place, because it did seem as if people cannot be brought from the dead, but she did. And it just, I know I'm always blaming it on the fact that it's going to be a trilogy, because I'm always saying that maybe the next book or maybe the other next book will be better, but I feel as if things should have been done way smoother in this one as well. So basically Darlington, that was the only thing that kept me going, that I was going to find out what happened to him, but it was just offhandedly told by Alex, who figured it out in the whole wife that's eating spirit situation. She was like, oh, so Darlington could have turned into a demon and then they're going to hell. Little boy, you're going to hell! And I don't know, it feels so randomly put together. At first I was expecting a dark academia, which I'm never judging a book by the expectations that I have prior to reading it, but I was expecting something dark academia, and I got that. And when I was reading it, I was like, okay, it's going to be a murder mystery, fantasy mystery with dark academia type of situation. I was really interested, but then it got even more convoluted, and there was so many plots that needed to be brought to resolution by the end of the book, and it felt like the ones that were brought to a satisfying ending weren't the ones that we were wanting. So we have to wait until the next book comes out to see what happens to Darlington, if I will be reading it. But I don't know, it just felt like the plot got more convoluted and more convoluted because of the need to keep us in a sense of suspense, because there are always these clues that are gathering and little intrigues and characters that were doing weird stuff. And I think that the number of side plots that happened led to this very unsatisfying ending that we got, because if it was kept more simpler, it would have been more satisfying, but it wasn't. And I just read a book with a very cliche character. I'm really curious to see what you guys think, if you liked it, if you really hated it. I cannot say I hated it. I've read books that were worse than this, but I don't know, it just felt like I was on the edge of my seat for something to happen that never happened, and the characters weren't great, and it feels like I really disliked the book. But just the first 100 pages were really fun to read when I didn't know what I was getting into. That's why I'm just being nicer than I should be, probably. But I'm really curious to see what you guys think. Did you like it when you read it? What are your gripes with it if you hate it? So before I close the video, I will have the next wheel of TBR so you guys know what I'm going to be reading next, because this was so much fun. Even though I ended up not really liking Ninth House, it's a fun experience, and it's something that makes me want to read books that will take me ages and ages to pick up. So the next book that I'll be reading is Sword of Kaigen, and I'm really excited for it. I've heard only great things. It's a fantasy book, which I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a duology or a series. At first it was a standalone, so I'm getting into another series of sorts, but I've heard great things about it, and I'm really excited because you guys know fantasy is my comfort zone when reading. So if you guys have read Sword of Kaigen, let me know what to expect, and I cannot wait to catch you guys next time. Bye!